Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarland. I'm your host, Al McFarland. So instead of presenting you a live program today, I'm sharing with you one of my favorite episodes, a show that shows you how we've molded the show that you've come to know and love. And while you're enjoying this show, I'm going to be working with my team to make the program even more informative, more insightful, and even more inspiring. And if you haven't already, I'd like you to show your support for the conversation with Al McFarland by subscribing to the Inside News YouTube channel. This way you'll get alerted about and never miss new episodes, show clips, and special features only available on the Inside News channel. And you can find us on YouTube at Inside News MN. To make it easier, I've got a link in the description on this video. Well, thank you again for all your support this year. I can't wait for you to see all that we are preparing for 2023. Now, my friend, sit back and enjoy this conversation with Al McFarland. I'm Al McFarland. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarland. This is our first Sunday webcast. This webcast is presented as a COVID-19 town hall meeting. The town hall meeting that we're doing is a special December series. Every day this month through the 31st, sponsored by the Minnesota Department of Health, we are undertaking conversations with agency leaders, organizations, community leaders about our community's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm pleased to continue that today with the stellar elder Atum Azzahir, who is the founder of the Cultural Wellness Center, among other things, Cultural Wellness Centers in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and her colleague, Roberta Barnes, who is the Community Health Hub Director at the Cultural Wellness Center, who was formerly with a project called the Backyard Initiative. We'll talk about that as well. Also, today's program is my colleague and dear friend, Shirlynn LaChapelle, who is finishing up her work as a nurse practitioner. Is that right, Shirlynn? Unmute your mic there. And who, along with me, works with Dr. Breveda Akinsanya in the African American Child Wellness Institute on a project intending to promote crisis intervention, crisis counseling for children and families affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Also on the program, my colleague, writer, reporter, editor for Inside News columnist, Brenda Lyle Gray. So we're here to have this conversation. You're listening to this on YouTube. We thank you for being a part of it. We want you to like it, share it, tell people about it. We'll push this out later today on Facebook. And we hope that this conversation is of value, of benefit to you. We thank you for your attention, and we're pleased to have it. Let me start by going to you, Elder Atum Azzahir. So good to see you. It's been a while, but the thought of you is always with me. Let me describe a little bit about you in the bio that I have. That in ceremonies that were held in 1989 and 1990 and 92, Atum Azzahir received the titles of Elder, Shemsu, and Mother from the communities of African people in America, from the Caribbean and the African continent, to whom she has dedicated her life work. Elder Atum is a teacher and a practitioner of African thought and spirituality. She received her D.Lit. Doctor of Literature, Kimai, Doctor of Literature in African Communities. She's from the International Kefren Institute in 2007. And this honor acknowledges Elder Atum's work in building sustainable cultural institutions in African communities. She has developed and managed organizations. She's written and produced other materials on African intellectual heritage. She's designed rites of passages programs, initiations, and ceremonies for healing. The institutions that she founded have created community models for workforce development, entrepreneurship, and mediation practices in order for the African in America to interface with mainstream communities. Some people who studied under her, with her, are in key leadership positions across the country, and founding and co-founding various institutions. So the the Cultural Wellness Center is a transformational space that incubates culturally based solutions to real world problems. And we'll ask you to talk about that. And in the process, you can bring in your colleague, Roberta Barnes, who's the Community Health Hub Director for the Cultural Wellness Center. So Sister Atum, Mother Atum, Elder Atum, so good to see you again. Welcome. And let me turn the floor over to you just to talk about, first of all, the immediacy of our need to respond to COVID-19. And from there, go back into how that fits into the context of our overall approach to health, wellness, and sustainability. And you have to unmute. Yeah, Kelvin, can you unmute Elder Atum from where you are?
On it.
There we go. That's fine.
I think I was able to, yes.
Okay, we are. That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Also, thank you, Brother Al, for even taking the time to go through all of that. I think the thing that is most important in the work that we're doing with COVID-19 is that we have been able, we in this case is my husband and I, and many staff people, leaders in the community have been able to respond right away to the need that our people have, based on the fact that we now are isolated, that we are disconnected from each other in ways on the emotional and spiritual level, on ways that we now are realizing the impact of. I think as culturally, we have always known that we needed to be together, to be united, to be cohesive in everything we did in order to survive. Well, COVID-19 has really revealed the very deep levels of that. And so the work that we're doing at the Cultural Wellness Center is really related to that. We have many health champions who are making phone calls, who are checking in with people, both elderly and those who are differently abled on whatever level. We make it accessible for people to go online and do everything from meditation to walking to cooking classes. At the Hub Center, where Ms. Roberta is the manager, it's astounding the number of people who take those classes, because we have made sure that they don't cost anything, and that we have staff people who both visit by telephone, who visit by Zoom, or who visit by just knocking on someone's door and dropping off a package to let them know that we're still there, we are still present, we are still alive, and we still care about them. I'd like Ms. Roberta to tell you about the COVID Community Coordinating Resource Center.
And unmute, please, Roberta. There we go.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to receive funding through the Minnesota Department of Health to provide our COVID community coordinator project. And when this opportunity came up, we looked at how we do the work and how we could be the most effective. And through this, we were able to set up a hotline. And then we also have ground navigators, because we know one thing, it's great to have the resources, but you have to be able to access the resources. And many of the people in our community, because of the technology issues, because of how complex systems are, they get into a system that has the resources, but they never get all the way to receiving the resources. So in addition to that, like I said, the people call into the hotline. We work with the people and we connect them with the many resources, and there's a wealth of resources out there. But also we find that some of those people that are calling into the hotline, they need that hand holding. They need to be able to be navigated through the system in order to get all the way to the end to get the help that they need. And we also know that people don't necessarily want to call into the hotline because they don't know the people that they are going to be speaking to on the other end of the line, and don't want this person to gain all their information and it not be used for the purpose in which we said we were going to use it. So not everybody will access the hotline. And so we knew that. So when we designed our project, we designed it with a twofold approach in engaging community to get the resources that they need, because they are hurting and we want to bring relief to that pain.
So one of the things that we did with in terms of resources, you hear people talk about resources. Well, what that is we have housing rental assistance that has money available for people. We just found out, for example, on Thursday, that this enormous amount of money is going to be returned to the federal government as of the 7th, which, as you know, is coming up. Many of us didn't know the deadline was so close. So our navigators are actually going through, Miss Roberta and a couple of other people were telling me that that when they found out about this housing rental assistance, because we know people are just waiting for the landlord to kick them out, waiting and not knowing what to do while they're waiting and not knowing who to turn to. So what ends up happening right now as we speak, we have navigators on the ground. They get a list of the resources. They knock on doors. They put flyers out. They make phone calls. They check in with neighbors and residents. One of the valuable parts of our work is that we always are working with people who have been through this, who live where others are, who are indeed just a part of the community fabric and the churches. And so these are people who are right now, as we speak, going through the details of an application for rental assistance. Miss Roberta was telling me that someone was on the phone 3 hours just to get the application through, just to get the person on the other end of the phone to give them information that they had to translate almost. I know that many of you know that even though we speak English, when we look at these applications, when we look at the way the language is used, we feel like we speak another language. So our navigators, Miss Roberta and others, are doing what we call translating into functional language, functional vocabulary, so our people can understand what is being said, what the implications are of what's being said. Another resource is food. Another resource is, once again, information about health care, about insurance, about what do you have to pay, about what the testing implies, about what they are putting themselves in for, what is the COVID-19 really coming from. So our people are having discussions and really checking in on things that, as you know, in our way of sometimes becoming suspicious of everything, we often do not take advantage of things because we have been treated so badly that we have a fear of the very resource that is accessible to us. So that's what we're doing. We think that, Mr. Roberta, would you please just give them numbers?
I want to say this just before I give you the numbers. Part of the groundwork is the demystification, really giving people hardcore facts, because we have been brutalized by a system. And because of that, we do not access systems because we don't trust them. We don't trust that this system really is working on our behalf to get us what we say we're going to do. And because of the process, there's a 2-level process when you are getting the rental assistance. You go in and it's the first application. That's the screening piece. And many of the people drop off after that application process and they fall short of getting the help. So our people stay with the people all the way through the process to get them the help that they really need. And that's part of the demystification, part of the hand holding that is needed so that these resources are getting into the hands of the people that really, really need it. And we hired 20 new people for this COVID coordinator project that we have. And we have 14 people who work our hotline, who were hired and trained, and we have 6 ground navigators who operate in the Cultural Wellness Center's scale of engagement, because it's one thing to have it, but if you don't engage the people in the process of getting the services. We have to date served 621 people through the hotline and ground navigation through our scale of engagement. We have made sure that, like I said, we follow the people all the way through the process. And many organizations said that their people are not getting served, that they are not getting the resources. But because we have developed a relationship with 211 and we developed a relationship with the people who are actually distributing the funding, we help the people to really understand what the process is and let the people know that these people are really hurting and we need to help them. And so how do we all work together as a unit to get the people the services that they need?
So finally, let me say that we learned, we were contacted by MDH the end of September with an understanding that all of this work that they're describing and the money that they had for the work had to be spent, we had to have a design, an implementation, and a carry through that used all the resources by December 31st. It was an enormous, enormous undertaking. So as a cultural wellness center, one of the things that you all know about Black created led organizations is we're always waiting to see if a crisis, the magnitude of COVID-19 and the uprising and the work that we've had to do to just keep ourselves in existence, when is the time going to come where our organization, like other major organizations, are left or destroyed, or because we're poorly supported and we're unable to grow? We were able, because of this nimbleness that we have developed over the 25 years, to respond to this event, this request that came from MDH, and get 20 people hired and trained and put on the ground within really and truly a 3-week period.
Wow.
I want to just say that the people we're working with, in many cases, are people who have worked with us before COVID-19, who had to be laid off. We were able to reemploy because we have such good relationships with people. We were able to reemploy 20 people who came forward. They are now trained. They themselves are reemployed. They themselves are out there in the community once again. And they themselves are feeling like this COVID has the capacity to destroy us, but it also has the capacity for us to see how well we can respond in crisis when we stick together, love each other, and practice our culture.
I so appreciate what you have said, Elder Atum and Sister Roberta Barnes, and I focus in my conversation on the question of revenue streams associated with problem solving.
Yes.
I say this often, Elder, that like everybody else, I would love for there to be a cancer pill that I can take that will eliminate or prevent or protect me from cancer, right? But until that cancer pill is developed, you have organizations like Mayo Institution or the Mayo Hospitals, right? That are research institutions and hospitals that are billion-dollar operations. So the pathway to solving the problem means the marshaling of material and human resources at the
Yes.
level of thousands of people and at the level of billions of dollars. And one could stand and say, yes, the mission is clear, important, and critical, but you can also describe the mission in terms of the resources it both requires and the revenue streams it generates. I say, in the words of my grandmother, my departed grandmother, when I was a kid, she'd say, you know, Al, mind your business, right? You take care of your business. And then as I grew up, she would interpolate that into the church business that I grew up in. And she would say, you know, God's business is the biggest business on earth, and you need to mind your business. And I take that, interpret it again to the question of health. And I say that our health is our business. We
Yes.
need to mind our business. Look at our health and the business implications and the capacity for us to be of benefit and of value to each other and therefore to humanity by understanding and owning the
Yeah.
enterprise of health and wellness. What do you think, Elder Atum?
Well, all I can say to you is that the people who work around me know that that's what I preach. The Cultural Wellness Center have been able to stay in existence for now 25 years because I use the term nimble. There are times when no, we're not going to, for example, accept a certain kind of money because what it requires of us to do. There are other times when we try to tap into resources that just will not give an organization like ours money. They won't. We also then have to get contracts, and the contracts that we have developed are what we feel are fee-for-service contracts. So we have expertise, knowledge, and skills that we have to literally market. We have stayed within the healthcare field because it is in healthcare where the knowledge that we bring is actually, believe it or not, valued at a higher level than it is in social services and in government. So we have stayed in business, Brother Al, because we believe we are a business. We don't sell our people. We do not sell our people out. We market knowledge that other people do not have. Number one, about taking care of themselves and providing health in a way that's beneficial to their own people. COVID-19 has really revealed the healthcare system's flaws too. The flaws, the investment that they've made in certain things. The healthcare system is definitely the place where we have to go to support them in taking care of us. We have to help them help us. We have to go to the doctor with people who are going. We can't ask them all the questions for them to answer. We have to go with our intuitive understanding of our body system and the natural ways that we can. And we also have to go to them having now realized that ignorance is not bliss, that if there are things we need to know, we have to ask the questions. We know that one of the pre-existing conditions is that we were given bad information, poor information, and information too late. It is up to us now to get timely information, to translate that information, and to be on time, on target with the ways that the healthcare system works. The healthcare system, I have to say, is responding. I think the Department of Health is responding. And when they are now responding, we want to go there with what it's going to take for us to be the ones in our community responsible to the best of our ability to bring our people to a place where we are saving and serving ourselves. So we believe what you say is absolutely right. And we don't peddle our misery. We do not peddle our misery. What we say is we know that our misery is not innate to us. It came from this system's inability to stop what it was doing to underdevelop us and to get in our way when we were trying to develop ourselves. So we are very clear about that message, but at the same time, we know that there's much that we have to do. We ourselves, I forgive myself for the fear that I had of speaking up in front of white people. I forgive myself, for all of the fattening foods that I have eaten. And now I realize that it's time for me to turn things around and that I have help when I'm doing that. So you're really right on. And we appreciate very, very much the opportunity for the cultural wellness approach, which is about us examining ourselves and coming forward with the resources that are innate to us, that are God-given, that we don't need to ask anybody else permission to do.
And Shirlynn, let me bring you in here because I think part of what Mother Atum and Sister Roberta Barnes have touched on is this question of stigma. There's this history of distrust and of lack of awareness that comes from the experience that we have had, and that's a cultural truth. It's a historic truth, right? So, when you go to somebody that you want to entrust your information, your knowledge, and your life to, but you're not sure if that person is interested in you for the reasons you're interested in yourself in living, or sees you as a research project. And it simply is going to make a note that you survived or you didn't. It makes you ambivalent about it, and it creates a confusion and a lack of responsiveness in our community. Part of that translates into the question of mental health as well. Part of this is about the body and the mind and the spirit all operating in a way that's synchronous and holistic and complete. So how do we get to and through understanding the mental health implications of this and move our people forward? Shirlynn LaChapelle.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the historic context, because for us, we're still in the past. We're still reliving all of the memories from the Tuskegee experiment and other experiments that have been, that we've been utilized in, often without our knowledge. How do we get to trusting this system? Number one, we've got to expect more from it. And that comes with making demands. They are not doing you a favor when you go into the clinic or the hospital. You do not have to apologize and say, oh, I'm so sorry, you're so busy, I don't want to bother you, this and this and this. You paid for that time, stop it right now. You are not bothering them. It's fee for service. They get paid very well for seeing you. Number two, you should have a list at home and keep that list going of every ache, pain, thing that is bothering you. Keep it written down so that when you do get to the provider, you pull out your list and you don't forget anything that's been bothering you. Because oftentimes you get to the doctor's office, you forget. And you often forget the most important thing that's been bothering you chronically. So,
and often, Shirlynn, you think that your pain or your feelings are unimportant, and you don't want to waste the doctor's important time with what you think is insignificant. You've been taught that you are insignificant.
Exactly, and you are the most important thing in there. And do not hang your head, hold it up. You have a right to expect excellent service. The same service that if you lived on Lake Minnetonka, you would get. And we as a people must learn to not only listen to what's being said, but to ask questions. You have a right to ask questions. If there's something you don't understand about the instructions, the diagnosis, or any information that's being given to you at the time, because that information is the information that can save your life. So do not be afraid to ask questions. and you are not taking up their time. That time has been paid for by you. You own that time. It's important that our community is also educated as far as health. What is health? Educated about COVID, educated about immunity. What provides you the most or the highest level of immunity? How to keep your blood pressure down. Why it's important to take your medicines as prescribed, not because you feel like it today and I think I'm just gonna pass tomorrow. I don't need that. Well, let me just tell you, that's how people show up at the hospital who have had a stroke or a heart attack. So you're putting yourself on the stroke or heart attack train. So you have to decide, as Mother Toon said, that you want to be healthy. It's a decision you make. Just like the decision to put on your mask every day when you go out of your house and to wash your hands and use hand sanitizer, you've made a decision not to catch COVID. So make a decision to be healthy. I sit on the Minnesota Department of Health Healthy People 2030 work group, and I sit on their Cardiovascular Alliance collaborative, a statewide steering committee for cardiovascular disease. And they're doctors from Mayo, the U, all over, all the healthcare systems. And we talk about the main problem, guess what, are us and the Native Americans. That breaching the high levels of illness, heart attack, and stroke within our community, it's like, how do we solve it? Well, Mother Toon, I think you mentioned it, and the other problem, we need more community health workers that look like the people in the community to go in and answer those questions and work with those people, because those people actually need information and they need it defined and explained by somebody who's not high-minded. They don't need any more PhD or master's level grad students going in the community. That's all has and always has been ineffective in every community. But we're late on the community health worker training in this country. They've been using them in other countries for, I'm gonna say decades, because sometimes they don't have doctors or nurses within miles. So the community health worker is the one that goes out, maybe takes your blood pressure, gets your glucose, and talks to you about those things. So COVID is giving us another chance to look at how to reach out within our community, how to structure things so that things don't drop and aren't lost in translation, and that we work together from the professional level of doctors and nurses all the way to community health workers, to other community organizations in the community. And community health workers are outreach. They're the ones that go into the home to make sure. And just as Mother Toon's group, I'm going to put you in the same category, Mother Toon, but you need those people that reach the community. You need those people that touch them in the way that they need to be touched, both intellectually, with information, and emotionally and spiritually, because we are a spiritual people.
So, Elder Atum, let me ask you to talk a little bit more about the Cultural Wellness Center and the proposition, the vision, and the value. And I mentioned that you are also entrepreneurial. So I want you to speak a little bit about your works in the entrepreneur space, because that's part and parcel, I think, of moving our people towards a sense of sustainability and self-reliance. So just talk about how the Cultural Wellness Center philosophy moves us towards thinking and acting towards creating healthfulness.
I think that I so appreciate, everything so far that's been said. I think that the Cultural Wellness Center began, as you said earlier, Mr. McFarlane, in 1996. And we have spent an enormous amount of time. We will be celebrating 25 years in 2021. We have spent an enormous amount of time, number one, looking at what is the thinking process that went into creating whiteness as it has become supreme in the world. We also spent an enormous amount of time on what is required for the African, to the Black, to realize that that whiteness does not, cannot, and must not define whether or not we are human beings. And so what we did was to study, as you all know, we studied the ancient traditions within Africa, the intellectual traditions. We did a lot of work to reclaim, ancient Egypt and all the teachings that go there, and decolonizing the African mind. And so we have classes and courses, and we take Black history and turn it into a philosophy that says, basically we are being and becoming. We're not just being, we're also becoming. And that philosophy of being and becoming moves throughout African people's lives wherever we are. And many times I give examples of how we have been so forgiving and so loving under strange circumstances, but that's because it's a part of our spirituality and our philosophy. The Cultural Wellness Center has locations, as you mentioned, in Minneapolis and St. Paul. In Minneapolis, the powerful thing that has just recently happened is, you all know, my oldest son, Anthony, by the way, I think everybody knows this, but I'll tell you again that my sons, that at this point in my life, for all three of my sons to be working within this idea of African community development, African economic development, for African culinary heritage work. They're all doing one area of that. Working with Miss Roberta over at the Midtown Global Market. We're one of the owners at Midtown Global Market, to have the entrepreneurs at the market, the entrepreneurs who are of African heritage, to really see that you have to create a market for selling your products, and you have to up the standard of those products that don't just beg for, once again, sales and customers from the European, but sales and customers in the Black community. Mm-hmm. So our economic development is really, sometimes we call it cultural and spiritual economic, because we can take care of ourselves. We've done it before, and we can do it now as a business model. So we have just received a part of the bonding bill came to the Cultural Wellness Center for pre-development of our new site that's going to be over on 38th and 3rd. We are in the cultural district there. We're very, very grateful once again for Dr. Wainwood, who is my partner in what we've done. We have he is a piece of property that we now are buying, and that property is being developed as a Dreamland Culinary Heritage Center. We will be offering entrepreneurial training, primarily food businesses, and primarily soul food businesses. And we will have Black chefs who really have to learn about our heritage and begin to take the food that Black people eat and really show that if you combine the food that we have eaten over the years, that where we had to take those parts of the food that were not healthy, we can get that same taste and that same experience and that same love in the food, and put it into a place where you can purchase and come in and experience food. We know that the plans that we have are changing because of COVID-19, but because of the bonding money and because of the community development effort based in our community's description of what they want us to do, we believe that it may extend for another year for our capital campaign, but we are very hopeful for the support that we have been given. Midtown Global Market, once again, is a located place where the Hub Center is and where our new Ancient Grange project is. And once again, Ms. Roberta is there, and our partner there, as you know, is about 38 businesses who we work very closely with. And I would say a third of them are Black businesses, and those are the ones that we pay specific and close attention to.
Well, what a wonderful story, Elder Atum. The 38th and 3rd project, that's phenomenal. And that's kind of in my mind, if you say 38th Street, that I equate that with George Floyd territory.
Yes.
And so I think I'd like to have the conversation. We're talking about the pandemic of COVID-19, but there's also the pandemic of 1619 and the experience of the George Floyd execution on 38th Street, along with COVID-19, highlight this pervasive imbalance, inequity in our culture and our society. But what it also is doing is forcing us, as you said, Elder Atum, to stand taller, to speak without hesitation or reservation, speak our truth to ourselves and to the universe without fear, to become fearless and fierce in pursuit of projecting and protecting our identity among human beings and our right to be at the table of decision in the creation of futures for all human beings. Speak to that, if you would.
Well, Brother Al, one of the things that we don't talk about very much in the cost of self-hate, there are enormous costs associated with the imposed self-hatred that we have internalized. I sometimes, even now, I get tears because Brother George Floyd brought all of us to a place where we had to look at ourselves in a very, very deep kind of way. This kind of reliance on the crisis in this society, the stereotype personality in this society. We spend enormous amounts of time fighting that stereotype personality, resisting that stereotype personality, but at the same time being in that stereotype personality. It's a conundrum for us, and we can't talk about it very much because it sounds like blaming the victim. But what we do now, what I'm doing especially, is admitting that I can see in this organization the times when I wouldn't ask for funding because I didn't think they were going to give it to me. Not because I didn't deserve it, but because I knew the bias. And then I would say to myself, and I'm not good enough anyway. So I think that we have to do this self-examination of how has the self-hate played out in the way we treat ourselves, each other, in our relationships, in the way that our institutions die. Our institutions die and are poorly supported, cannot grow. Our businesses die, cannot grow. So this economic development and this kind of work that we're doing now to cultivate the assets of our own being. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Those talents and skills that were stolen from us, the talents and skills that were renamed, we now have those talents and skills that we can apply to our own community development practices. We don't have to beg people anymore. We don't even have to beg for the educational process because we know that we know. We have known and created, and now let's do it for ourselves, and with our community, and take our wealth that we already have. We have 3 C's that is wealth. One is connections. Our people love each other. The respect that I get from Black people is enormous. Every person I come in contact with has some story to tell about something that I've said or done that was good. That's enormously powerful, and I can use that as well. The other thing is our culture, way of knowing and being is a wealth. It is an asset. So our cultural capital, our, once again, kinship networking, and right now, the reason that we can have this conversation at this level, to be honest with you, is because we respect each other so much. We are connected. The connectivity that we already have gives us a chance to survive COVID-19. Because I can talk on telephone, on virtual. I can send you a virtual hug and you can actually feel it because I've hugged you so many times before. Does that make sense?
That's right. That's right.
The Black way. And that's the work that we are involved in. And once again, the final thing I'll say is that I am also sharing and teaching white people that their whiteness has damaged them tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
That whiteness is not something that has benefited them.
Mhm.
Their humanity has been lost because of it, and they have grieving and mourning to do. They don't have to help me. They have to do what the divine in creation has given us all to do, and they have failed on that. And so that's another area that we're working on, and we call it moving from race to culture. So that is about, what do? I have over the years refused, to work with Europeans, but now I see I'm called by the divine to work with people, human beings, to uplift humanity. And that's what Black people are called to do.
That's awesome. Shirlyn, jump in. I know you're feeling it. What are your thoughts and what are your comments?
I like that.
Elder, this is so wonderful. Thank you so much.
It is. Hearing you talk, now I'm from Chicago, and Reverend Wright was my pastor. And
Yes.
in Chicago, I came here expecting there to be Black businesses because we got plenty of Black businesses in Chicago. And growing up in a church, well, I was actually an adult when they hired Reverend Wright at Trinity. But growing under him, I knew about my history, and I'm almost arrogant in that knowledge and the knowledge of who we are as an African people and all the great things that we've done throughout history. And as you said, there is a lot of self-hatred, and that self-hatred is behind the gang violence, it's behind the dropping out of school, it's believing the oppressive language that you have been hearing your whole life and not hearing that you're more than those lies, those things that you've been taught. What is whiteness? What is Blackness? That's a social construct. What is race? Another social construct developed as an excuse for slavery. So to make us the other, when really we're all the same with different skin hues and ethnic cultures. There's one race, the human race.
Let me also just add to what you're saying about Reverend Wright and others, including many of the Malcolm and others, who have really put the word out for us to think about us, and that we should stand on ourselves. I do think the self-hurt, the internalized self-hate, has caused us to destroy each other and ourselves. And that at this point in time, I say it's very important for us to think through this. The young people, we have become so embittered by everything that's happening to us that the young people cannot turn to us as elders any longer for anything but criticism and supervision and control. I am watching, once again, how many young people come to me and ask for support. And I've had to really, it was sad for me for a while to see that they weren't coming, because you know what they thought? They thought that I was going to be, think that I'm all that in a bag of chips because I've survived. So what is happening now is young people, I am seeing that it is a flaw in the struggle for me, and that I am the one who has to now listen to them. What are their innovative ideas? Do you think we got nimble because I all of a sudden got enlightened? We got nimble because we had to listen to the young people. We had to listen to their innovation, their ideas, their inventive, creative ways, and their lack of fear. They're not afraid. So let's turn the lack of fear and the courage that they have into eliminating my own fear that I sometimes don't even know I have. So I'm working to ask us, and I hope that we can have a conversation sometime about how do we as the old people begin to become the library and the encyclopedias that our children open and turn to get the knowledge and information that will give them a foundation to build where they're going. That's what I find myself really hoping for and working toward right now.
Elder Atum, I still call you Mother Atum from back in the day, but
oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Even though I'm
we lost your video, Shirlynn. Turn your video back on.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm leaning on things here. One way, we have got to stop being afraid of our young people. When they see that you're afraid of them, you make them feel like the other, not you, Mother Atum, but all of us. I make it a point when I leave a grocery store, when I'm in Minneapolis, anywhere, walking down the street, or I see several of them outside, I say, good morning. And you know, they'll ignore it. I said, good morning. And they're shocked that I spoke to them. And I said, how you doing? And then they smile and say, I'm doing all right, I'm doing all right. Okay, next time I see you, you better say hello. They said, okay, because I have shown them, I see you. I see your humanity. You are worth speaking to. You are like my children. You know, show some love. Mother Atum, you already do that, but I'm saying if we all do that, we don't have to be so frightened of each other. We have taken on the oppressor's attitude toward each other so that our young people are fighting everybody on all sides.
That's
so
right.
Our first step is to say, I see you, I love you. I know you can be more than who they say you are. And you are more than that, but you've got to believe it. When I talk to them, I tell them, you are more than you know you are, and you can go further than you ever thought you could. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, make a plan, decide what it is, and you can do it. You might be the cure for cancer.
That's right. That's right. You know, I take it, Shirlynn, I love that. And Mother Atum, you can respond as well. And Sister Roberta, I say to each of us that we need to simply recognize the presence of the divine in us, and that the divine in me connects to and engages the divine in you. I approach you at that level of expectation and present that to you and seek that from you as well. And when we connect and cooperate, there's nothing we can't do. I expect that the purpose of your existence will shine forth in you, and I call that forth in each and every individual. So that's my take on that, and I think that's consistent with what you're saying, Shirlynn LaChapelle.
Yes,
and I think that's consistent with the vision of our Africanness and the personality that we bring to humanity as African people. And I think that's also consistent with this idea of moving from race to culture, that we represent a cultural consciousness that really not only is an answer for us, but it's an answer and a model for humanity. That us being ourselves enables and unlocks the potential for other human beings to become their true selves as well. But we have to be firm in determining that we will be who we are.
That's right. Our classes actually, the classes and trainings that we do at the Cultural Wellness Center are named, and we have coined this training name, Moving from Race to Culture to Creation. Mm-hmm. And so that is the training. And many of the people who sign up for the classes and become, at some point we want to certify and really begin to see how can we even get reimbursed through the healthcare for these classes and for the people who come out who have received our training. So moving from race to culture to creation is the is the new wellness center teaching and classes and course description that we're having. And you all probably know this already, but we work very closely with Resma Menakem on this whole thing about moving from race to culture and turning trauma into creative strategies for working forward for Black people.
Roberta, wouldn't it be wonderful? You've got 20 people that you have on a payroll. Wouldn't it be awesome if you had 2,000 people? And the need is there. I mean, we have documented that the disparities table in our community reflect this failure of society to respond to and encourage and nurture us in our bid for health and wellness and to recognize our humanity. But what if, as a question of policy and practice, you are able to institute systems that hire and provide salaries, not to 20, but to 2,000 people, each assigned to help navigate, train, move our people towards health. It's our business taking care of our health in that regard. What do you think about that? I mean, how do we start projecting that possibility and then begin to make the demand that this is where healing will come from in our community?
It is a vision that's not impossible, because I believe that the impossible can be made possible. This is the thing that I think keeps many of our Black organizations from rising to the top. Elder Atum talked about fear. Fear causes hatred. And when hatred comes, what you hate, you work to destroy. And that what you destroy might be the very bread that you need. So we as an organization, we always talk about the process is the product. We are the greatest problem solvers. I think that the Cultural Wellness Center is the best kept secret around, because we have the solution to the problem, because we know inside of every problem, the solution is already there. And I believe that we can tap into this, and we can be seen as the organization that can be the first responders, training people, because we train people to be champions. We don't train people to operate in mediocrity. We create champions, and that's what we are. We are champion builders, because we build our own. Who better to build than us to build our people? Elder Atum also talked about our work. This work that we do, in everything that we do, we have 4 health priorities that we operate in. We operate in social support, social connection, health education, and health empowerment, because we believe inside of everyone, they have everything that we need. And we're just igniting that spark. When we go out in community, we are igniting what is already in there. We give you the opportunity, unapologetic, to be who you are and what you need to be. When I came to the Cultural Wellness Center, I operated in a strictly Caucasian environment, educated in a Caucasian environment, strive to be the very best that I could be. But I lost who I was. I became this chameleon. I changed with whatever environment I was in. But now I know who I am. I'm grounded in who I am, and I don't have to make apologies for it. And yes, I can envision, instead of 20 people, 2,000 people. And we keep on pressing and striving toward that mark. And like Elder said, we don't beg, we stay true to our mission. It has to fit within our mission in order for us to even consider it. And because we love our people, this fit well within our mission. And because we are master builders, absolutely, 2,000 people, we can imagine that.
Listen, what a wonderful testimony. I want to thank all of you, Mother Atum, Elder Atum Azzahir, Sister Roberta Barnes, both from the Cultural Wellness Center, and my friend and colleague Shirlynn LaChapelle, partner with me, working with Dr. Boveda Akinsanya on the African American Child Wellness Institute trauma or crisis counseling project. Thank all of you for being here. This has been a great conversation. We'll do this again. I think it needs to be done again, and I appreciate you. I thank you so very much. And if you're listening on YouTube, you like this kind of conversation, like it, subscribe to this channel. We'll be posting this later on Facebook at Insight News Facebook. We'll have stories about this at the Insight News Daily newsletter. And we'll also be presenting this as a feature in Insight News and insightnews.com. We're trying to use all modalities, all platforms to create a new narrative in our community, create a public mind that shows us authoring a future in which we win. And in the process, Elder Atum, we redefine what winning means, because winning for us might not mean that you lose. The winning we're talking about is the winning that every human being and others benefit from as well.